If geneticist David Reich could follow the ancestral markers that all clearly prove human origin lies in the Americas, and if he because of them would conclude that the Pastoral Ancestry, Indo-Europeans, which also include corded Ware Cultures and Beaker Cultures, etc., all came from the Americas, amongst others through navigating the Atlantic Gyres, human history would be rewritten, this right there and then. Human history as it is presented by consensus now, meaning the actual consensus about our history and origin, holds far too many paradigms, and the undermining number of paradigms or essential doubts is growing fast, and the actual consensus history is improbable or even impossible, for this as well as also other reasons. When a person finds out what he or she defends is impossible, that person should revise what he or she defends. But that does not happen in this case. David Reich makes efforts to stimulate others to rewrite human history, but instead most of the time his public goes on asking for confirmations of some parts of the actual human history he just informed he thinks is impossible, and he is not the kind of person that will say that bluntly in their face. He will stay silent about his own opinion and will utter consensus as he hears it directly from his counterparts. And by the way, he is very good and clear at doing just that too. Some people could argue, you just made a grave error and mixed up pastoral ancestry with Beaker cultures and even with Indo-Europeans cultures, which is very general, representing roughly half of the world population, and consequently also associated with a large part of all spoken languages on this planet. It is the moment we have a grip on the true story, that we could try to refine later and without hurry, based on the enormous amount of valuable info that is out there for decades and even over a century. The key is to first have the true story, which is very easy to check. If the majority of the paradigms in your working model does not fall away right away, you are not dealing with the true human history or ancestry. That said, if one considers the Americas as the origin in some kind of work hypothesis, all paradigms will fall away right away. This is illustrated along with our videos. Unfortunately, as soon as someone utters the Americas as the origin, this is considered treachery against consensus right away, without the minimum of argument. But we claim that the moment we pin down our ancestors and their environment, we humans will have our way open to be able to thrive and even solve all of our challenges. We explain the reason we will then, and only then, be able to thrive as never before in our videos. We also claim that as long as we deliberately keep ourselves blind for our ancestry and true story, we also keep ourselves blind for how we consequently will thrive and solve. This claim is explained in detail in other videos, but some people will intuitively understand this claim, because our ancestors clearly thrived enough to survive and even spread to the rest of the world, which is obviously not a small feat. David Reich presents in one of the videos 1-3 population test, that points out that Northern Europeans have a uniquely strong genetic link with Native Americans. Tests with other groups also show a strong link with Native Americans, although less strong as in the case of Northern Europeans. It is clear that in the context of the actual human story he cannot yell out, "Let's go to the depths of this," simply because for consensus only thinking about the Americas for ancestry is handled similar to one that would be super spreading the Black Death. When older or the oldest populations links are considered, the genetic link with Native Americans pops up again and again. In the case of older or oldest populations, the link points to South America, in fact to the boundaries and the inside of the Amazon forest. As said, several of the most relevant and ancient ancestral markers and indigenous populations across Eurasia and all other continents point to the same boundaries and the inside of the Amazon forest. To go on excluding the Amazon forest, South America and the Americas as a potential origin of all humans is totally unscientific, and scientific neglect at best. David Reich has a lot of responsibilities and activities, and not a lot of spare time to distract from his scientific work. As a clear and key authority, his findings, if made public, have great impact, and for now he is considered as a kind disruptor by some, while it is clear he is one of the most patient and ethical scientists we have and ever had on the face of this planet. This said, for us it seems clear he holds back in exclaiming of what he knows is not good science, to spare many others that are not ready yet for the true human story. To make sure about his personal conclusions, he and colleagues are working on models and working hypotheses assuming that we modern humans have 30% of Neanderthal DNA. But these models do not seem completely satisfactory either. We claim that David Reich is not on the outlook for older African DNA because he thinks that older DNA would prove consensus and/or out of Africa. We claim he mentions this because it would make clear our origin does not lie in Africa, and consensus would no longer be able to escape the verdict of the true history and origin. We claim that David Reich and at least a handful of others are eager to see more research and conclusions regarding the Americas and especially South America. But him just saying so would cause a revolution and cause risks for his and others' research. He seems like a very empathic man, and he seems to sacrifice his own credit to spare others that think they depend on consensus and out of Africa. He is not alone. There are more scientists that do not tell what they know to spare others. For those, also the noise from those that want more of the same. The enigmatic narratives of the untrue human history is far too loud to dare to even think to speak out. Geneticist David Reich studies point to Native Americans. Apart from several ancestral markers, some of David Reich's own studies and/or studies he was involved in also point out the Native Americans as clear ancestors of Northern Europeans, this in the one test with the highest signal. In other tests, Native Americans also are pointed out as potential ancestors, but signals do not repeat the strength of in the test with Northern Europeans, but also the other tests confirm Native Americans' DNA to be ancestors, only less clear or rather less direct. Probably meaning not in one single crossing, as most probably is the case of the Northern Europeans, or including more mixture with groups that are related to other parts of the Americas. PV92 Transposon. The PV92 transposon or jumping gene also is a clear ancestral marker. This very old and enigmatic ancestral marker proves its migration is not towards the Americas, but departing from the Americas, Amazon forest, towards the west, and this in a close to exact association with the Austronesian expansion, as well as the population Y expansion, which both also part from the Americas, this also towards the west. This with the population Y markers also being yet other ancestral markers, as well as the fact that all here mentioned markers all also reciprocally confirm each other. This makes that the probability for the truth to be out of the Americas is close to 100%, thus far above a quite certain 95% confidence level. Statistical genetics, if applied, would confirm this right away. The data regarding markers are out there, but scientists do not take them on, despite clear indications that tell us taking on the markers would provide with certainty the true human origin, ancestry, and history. At the same time, the chance of some sort of unknown and unexplained drift is close to zero. Systematically not accepting the Americas as a possible origin of all humans could soon prove to be one of the worst and most persistent error of over 100 years of science. The question will then be if this can be considered an error, or whether it must be considered persistent neglect, fraud, or even crime against science, and/or against certain ethnic groups that were already systematically cleansed and genocide on occasions before in history.